so consultancy is what we do everything for. And consultancies, just to describe them a little bit, I find that they're either 6 months or a year. In fashion, for a stylist, I rarely see them more than a year. Just because fashion changes, people change, designers change their tastes. They sometimes like to change it up. I mean, after that year, it doesn't mean they won't renew you for another year. I've seen that plenty of times. There are lots of stylists who've been renewed over and over again, season after season. It's just fashion companies, as far as I've seen, they like to make that choice on a 6-month or yearly basis. So what stylists do in consultancies is we advise a company or a brand on design and marketing for a project fee. So when we're working with commercial, we're working on a day rate. And inside of a consultancy, you have like a guaranteed project fee for a certain amount of time, a certain amount of days, and certain kind of jobs. So it's so nice once you have them because you have almost like getting a paycheck. You know, it's like, not that we don't get paychecks, but the cash flow when you're only working on commercial jobs is going up and down and up and down. You have to really manage, to pay your assistants and pay rent or do whatever you're doing, right? So with the consultancies, it's nice because you can look at a 6-month or a year and say, okay, this is gonna be my income. This is what I have coming in. And then all the other commercial jobs become like cherries on top kind of situation. So the important thing, okay, so you're working with editorial and commercial, we get really used to switching through teams, right? So we're with this photographer, with this hair and makeup, and we're with this casting director, and we're switching, this art director, and you're not consistently working with the same team. The great thing about a consultancy is that you are working with the same team for that 6 months or a year, so you can really learn how to work with those people. And it becomes a customer service conversation, but more than that, you can really understand their voice and what story they're trying to tell with their brand. And I say trying to tell because sometimes they're not so good, and sometimes they don't even know. Like I worked with a Denim Brand who, they had a couple of big hits, right? They had some big hit jeans that did really, like sold hundreds and hundreds of millions of jeans. But they were just about the jean. They didn't have any story about who their person, like who their man or woman was. And it was just, it was a one-hit wonder. And so they were like, oh, we need you to come in because our design team like doesn't know. Like they didn't even really know their demographic. They knew who was buying the jeans, but they didn't have an aspirational demographic. So they brought me in to work with them on that. And within that becomes, again, it's like our inspiration and research conversation. And it's creating, and usually they hire us based on our voice. So, with me, it's like, if you're hiring me, you're usually after powerful and sexy with sense of humor. Which, I mean, sense of humor can also be, my thing can also be translated as like a little bit intellectual, like a little, funny, just a little bit off. So I came in there, and I started working with them on and I started really looking at the designer. And usually when you're talking to the designer and you can look at the designer and make an assessment from their clothes of what they like. I usually talk about like, what are your favorite designers? Like the questions I was asking Adam about his voice. It's like, what are your favorite magazines? What are your favorite brands? What are your favorite designers? And you can really start to kind of see the aspirational women that they're going after. And sometimes there's a disconnect, right? Like they're saying that they're designing for one person, but then all their favorite designers are someone else. And sometimes that's where the confusion is. And the minute you're like, oh, okay, because, and I'll sit to them like, well, I'm kind of confused because I know that this is your favorite. These are your favorite brands. But you say you're designing for this, and so you can't find inspiration because you actually don't like this kind of person you're designing for. And I just find like fundamentally it doesn't work. So you start to kind of get in there and figure out how to make the voice that they have in these kind of designers that they have, that they love, or the magazines or whatever it is. And you start to figure out how to make it work for the product they're designing. And sometimes it's just small. I mean, with the denim, it was so much fun because it's like picking out a pocket detail. Like, oh, we're doing something like menswear based. And I was like, okay, let's like go through like menswear, like classic, beautiful men's tailoring, and figure out how to apply it to denim and to jeans. Like small little things like buttons and pocket details, and it was so much fun.